I finish off talking about time briefly and how Melinda's behavior seems to be a response or reaction to excessive exhaustion, fatigue, tiredness that produces all sorts of abnormal behavior, or shall we say coping mechanisms that are far from connecting or enabling communication. Good morning, or good afternoon rather. This is 22nd of May 2023. I'm at the south bank of River Thames. In the background we can see the Houses of Parliament, Westminster Palace, and of course the river bank and a lifeboat in the foreground of the picture. This is the site very near to Lambeth Palace. I'm just going to turn around the camera, which is over there. That's Lambeth Palace. If anybody watches Yourang Milord, then Lambeth Palace and bus number 8 is often featured in it with the bishop. And of course, St. Thomas's Hospital is in the background, in Evelina Hospital, and also King's College are already being building, as it were, constructing, or the company on behalf of King's College, a new biomedical engineering centre that was born out of various needs and opportunities created by the pandemic of 2019, 2020, 2021. Time. Melinda appears to be punishing me for pretty much everything she encountered as unfairness in her life. There is my assumption at this point in time, because it's worth researching it, that telling the truth or being truthful and being loyal is somehow heavily depending on, in an individual, heavily depending on hormonal constellation or neurotransmitter constellation, not just particular ones such as dopamine or oxytocin or acetylcholine, but also, and obviously adrenaline as well in the picture, but also other things. And cognition is an important factor in it. And when cognition fails for whatever reason, there is no information, no access to reliable information, no money enough to live on, so one doesn't have means to sustain themselves properly so they can think appropriately, or there's lots of disturbance or violence or destruction or distress in one's life, internal or external, then it appears to be that that cognitive approach to things, even though that was the way of coping and successfully coping in the past of that individual's life, somehow regression, going back to a previous developmental level, mostly childhood, seems to be prevalent. And it's not easy for someone who's a woman, because at around the age of 40-45 there is menopause, particularly complicated when there was no pregnancy throughout one's life, and the regulation of periods were already requiring chemical intervention when they were adolescents. So it isn't easy. There is an internal experience that could be, or possibly, I gather, could be very extreme at times. And this is where another coping mechanism for women, which is dissociation, comes into play, because when people dissociate, there is difficulties, uncertainty about what has actually happened, because they dissociate. So it feels like as they were not part of the entire picture, they watched their own life as a movie. And it happened to me when I was so extremely tired. Now I know we thought at the time it was an encephalitis, and there was a debate between the infectologist and the microbiologist. Microbiologist was happened to be an ex-boyfriend of mine, who is these days actually, interestingly enough, a consultant microbiologist in England, in a university hospital up north. So I was treated as a virus encephalitis, because at the time PCR technique was not available, and in the absence of any other confirmation, that was the only thing they could confirm. With high body temperature, excessive tiredness, and for half a year a headache and dissociation, as I was watching my own life as a movie. It was quite an experience, and not many of the memories could have been formed. Moreover, we need proper sleep to form memories, and some people could manage to wean themselves off of proper sleep. So they basically go into alpha and self-hypnotize, or watch whatever programs in the background. And the trouble is, whatever they're watching, and if it's a fantasy or if it's a crime story, that's a very bad dream, because whenever is missing a piece of information from the day, or the story is not coherent, then it's very important that they cannot store memories. They can, neurodiverse people seem to be, to me, being able to keep it in their temporary memory store for a long time, but after a while it gets very tiring, it's not sustainable. Therefore, it gets transferred into the permanent memory, but that needs to be absolutely in a coherent story. And if there is no bits of information that are missing, there will be assumptions or previous experiences, and memories formed that way are difficult to, when they record later on, it's difficult to identify which one was used by actual hard facts and first-hand experiences, actual events, or which one were made by assumptions, experiences, or background television created memories that are not even remotely true. When decisions are being made on such memories, that's a problem, particularly when everything is negative. And there is immersive media now. Immersive media is utterly dangerous for many people. And at the same time, for many people, including Melinda, seem to be the opportunity to get rid of the false beliefs. So time. Melinda had lots of injustices to face as a child, must have had. Therefore, she's punishing people. And ever since she decided I am her enemy, thanks to gaslighting from a boyfriend who did not understand our relationship, neither did we at the time, I must add, started to gaslight her and make her uncertain in everything she was experiencing, or she had experienced, or she shared with him. Moreover, when they went to Hungary for a short holiday, in every single picture that guy is angry, as if it was Melinda's fault or the Hungarians' fault, that the quality of life was, and still is, much better, even in Hungary, than ever been in the UK, particularly in England, particularly for an Englishman. That's exceptionalism's risk. There is no quality control in it, particularly when the culture is no fuss. It has its advantages, but it also has its drawbacks. So much more balanced view would be better, but we did not know at the time that how people cope with lack of growing up. So when there's some needs are not being met, it's not just compensation adaptation. Let that be any kind of symptom. We pathologize so often, and because we pathologize particularly in England, even normality, then we don't deal with it. We just exclude it and we get away from it. It's like infectious, contagious. So this is the reason these things are not being dealt with. This is the reason why mental health care in the UK is so poor. It is unbelievable by continental standards. I mean, when I moved to England, and to get an urgent appointment to my GP, to spend 6 weeks waiting, I said that at the time there would have been a riot and a revolution day number 2. It was just unacceptable. So let's face it, most of the parts of England that come across the healthcare is way below mediocre. It's nothing good, not at all, and the money will not solve this. This is a question of culture, this is a question of education and language. Believe people or not, this does not come from money. So it's not money that brings a solution, but inclusion, diversification, and a bit more clarity on things. Do not eliminate things, do not exclude or fight things. I cannot stand those people and those charities that fight things. Do not fight things. There's no point. Include them, get to know them, understand them better, and see what they can contribute given the diversity of the context. And that would be the way to get the English identity back. Moreover, to reduce the risk of immigrants like myself and others ruining the culture that adopted them out of false beliefs and goodwill and assumptions, as opposed to supporting it and helping it and saying thank you to it and being ally to it. So Melinda is back to that age, and now she's using police, as it were, to become the confirmation, the validation for the injustices. In the following manner, all of a sudden she flips and then she screams top of her head and screaming out of her bedroom window and making me believe that she would be suicidal. So of course I scoop her off the windowsill, and then the police gets called by the neighbors, obviously because she's very vocal, and she's screaming help, help, help. The police comes, which is very awkward on every single time. And basically what's also doing this Melinda is giving her a similar feeling than a dopamine flush, but it's not the same because it's adrenaline, and moreover it's very addictive. So now basically every other day she needs a drama to carry on. That's what she believes. Moreover, all along since her childhood she kept telling herself how shit she was. Therefore she keeps telling this, and this has become a false belief about herself. And this is all about not knowing herself enough, despising her own body. The reason she moved away from home was different than my reason. My reason was because I felt I'm gonna get suffocated. It was just not the right environment to be at my parents' too. I didn't say that it was too limiting, but it felt that way. Whereas Melinda moved away from home because she was convinced she was faulty since birth. Therefore, she would only cause harm. And we found each other out because we did not think much of ourselves. Therefore, we became free. And freedom was very important. Not everything, and a few people we ignored basically and didn't even recognize how they helped. But freedom was a crucial ingredient of living, which is utterly missing from here. And the reason it's missing because of beliefs of people. Full stop, nothing else. Everything is given. Hungarians are not good at taking opportunities, no. We tend to pull others down because we are islanders because of the mentality we have. We think we are shit, so we don't initiate. Therefore, get lots of pain later in life for the missed opportunities. And Melinda's pulling me back intentionally because it's creating drama. She's not getting dopamine flush, but she's getting adrenaline flush. We had a journey through Europe for about 10 days, which, as long as I live, I'm grateful to her. And that just showed to me the whole dynamic of it, that Melinda, is even in greater danger at this place. She cannot think. She needs loyalty. The spirit of the place does matter more to her than to me. It's in the invisible domain of life, but still important, just like quantum physics and quantum laws. So that's for today. Today I'm seeing my bosses to try to get some money. Need to phone the bank, giving us the mortgage because we cannot pay anymore, and we need to sell the place. And I also need to see the police in Brixton because I need to make some arrangements because herself using police for validation like 7 times already. That's about the top. And she's not going for therapy, of course. And she's aggressive and malevolent intentionally. She does not want to be different because that's the first narrative she had since her childhood. When she took on board everything that happened around her, she had no other choice, and she was gaslit and malevolent, cheated by her siblings, just a year or so older. So, and at that age, that's a huge advantage. Cognitively, that would be possible to overcome this quite easily, but it's not possible in here because of the nutrients are insufficient for her. Possibly she's got a thyroid problem. She's possibly anemic and vitamin D depletion because of lack of sunshine. Everything is imported here, mostly by air. That means no real nutritional value, not for us, for sure. And that's my body's problem. That's why I'm anemic, quite heavily, quite significantly, hence tired. Has a kind of mild kidney failure now developing and had problems with the liver enzymes, although I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing. And I'm working every day, still I get this. So there's something in my lungs, there's fibrosis. I'm just not in the right place. This place is dangerous to me. I just compensated for 15 years and blamed myself by shame. It eventually turned out to be nothing else. It's just the basic needs of my body. I'm not functioning in this climate. That's it. It's not even about the culture. Yet